This is the story of 3 multimillionaires and a billionaire
The Republican Party is controlled by a bunch of bigots.
pushing a top-down, vindictive agenda.
The only way the bigots are going to learn is if we take their power away from them.
Many of these people are multi-billionaires. If they can utilize our money to basically accomplish their social agenda, that's a great thing for them.
A cake shop owner in Colorado now facing jail time after he refused to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding.
This is how a tiny club of secretive elites assumed control over a state of 5 million people.
They made new rules. They changed the rules, and then they exploited those rules. There's a war going on.
They declared open season on conservatives, Republicans, anyone who didn't agree with their radical far-left agenda.
They want to tell me what doctor I can go to, what health plan I can have. That is the war on women.
They have passed legislation that has been anti-gun, anti-family, anti-energy development.
The Colorado state flag is still flying high here in Fort Lupton, at least for now.
Being a survivor of rape, what would have been different if I had been carrying the weapon I was licensed to carry that night?
That's why we have the whistles.
I just want to say that actually statistics are not on your side, even if you had a gun.
They are fundamentally changing our culture here in Colorado.
This hill is a communion. It's a communion of people who like to smoke weed, have a good time.
We need to legalize marijuana nationally.
I self-medicate. I ain't got on a plan yet, but so I self-medicate.
And I love myself, and I love everybody.
It started with a plan to control a state legislature and helped pave the way to the White House.
Well, I tell you what, we win Colorado, I'll get 4 more years.
You allegedly preside over a sanctuary city.
We can't do deportations.
It's a story of arrogant elitism.
We have some of the same, backwards thinking in the kind of rural western areas.
The Educate the Idiots campaign. Really insulting stuff.
No response tonight from former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg about his controversial remarks about Colorado.
And it's the story of where they're going next.
Cleansing a sickness from our souls doesn't come easily. It's gruesome.
I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? Who is this person? Where'd they get the kind of money?
If they can do it in Texas, Republicans are doomed.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
It all started here in Colorado. And the Colorado model, as it has become known, could be coming to your state next. I'm Michelle Malkin, and this is the story of the Rocky Mountain Heist.
Pleasant start to our Saturday morning is going to give way to a pleasant afternoon for us around southern Colorado. Temperatures will be sitting in the 80s as you head along in eastern.
And the planning forecast shows that the next couple of days are going to be awfully nice to get outside, get those errands done. We're looking at 60 degrees for our daytime high on both Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, we cool it down.
If you're in the mountains, temperatures will be somewhat cooler. They'll be sitting in the 60s and 70s, except on top of the mountain itself where they'll be sitting in the lower to middle 40s.
Nice and calm here in the 90s backyard, but we expect them to intensify into the afternoon hours and eventually get so gusty that we could see some potential damage, much like we saw overnight heading into Sunday evening. Well, let's get into the forecast.
The Pacific coast, it's off to our east that we're seeing the heavier showers and thunderstorms. We're going to continue to see chances for those showers and thunderstorms.
10 minutes of non-stop news, starting with the news alert. Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper now saying state lawmakers should consider gun control measures.
Just a decade ago, Colorado had 2 Republican U.S. senators, 5 out of 7 members of the House of Representatives, a governor, both houses of the state legislature, and almost every single elected official statewide.
Colorado was a place where people could come and unleash their human potential. That's why builders and miners and cattlemen and software engineers and brewmasters came to Colorado to unleash their potential. That's what Colorado was.
You might not recognize Colorado today. To understand the Rocky Mountain Heist, you have to begin with the Colorado model, an underground network of extremist liberal groups so secretive that veteran conservative lawmakers like Ted Harvey didn't see it coming.
There was no way we could respond. We didn't have the resources to be able to respond, and the media was totally off guard. They didn't realize what had happened until after the fact.
And then, of course, Fred Barnes wrote the Colorado model for the Weekly Standard, and so that's how it came to my attention.
Well, Colorado, I'd always thought of as a pretty conservative state. And yet Democrats had, over the recent decades, had done pretty well there. And then I realized, after hearing from a couple of people, that Democrats had organized in ways that were helping them enormously.
The Colorado model was being built by 4 massively wealthy Coloradans.
Tim Gill,
Rupp Bridges,
Jared Polis,
and Pat Stryker.
So it was key to have these wealthy funders. Now, it was a little embarrassing to Democrats. They didn't play it up, this Gang of 4, because they're the people who are always railing against rich people playing a big role in campaigns. And that's exactly what happened.
Where you look at Tim Gill and Pat Stryker, they revel in the fact that they are known nationally as the billionaires that took over and bought Colorado. They revel in that.
They became known as the Gang of 4. Tim Gill, a reclusive tech mogul, Rupp Bridges, who made his money on oil exploration software, Jared Polis, one of the richest members of Congress who sold his internet greeting card business for several $100 million, and Pat Stryker, an heiress so hidden behind the walls of her estate that very little is known about her or her motives.
I don't think most people inside Colorado realize it. I think most people still haven't the foggiest idea what happened.
Gang of 4, it sounds actually very familiar, but I couldn't tell you.
I do not know who the Gang of 4 are.
No, I've never heard of the Gang of 4. And the other person you mentioned?
I've heard the name Pat Stryker, but I can't tell you what it means.
Okay, not all. I didn't hear it before.
I've never heard of Ted Gillis.
I have not heard of the Rupp Bridges. Brett Bridges? Brett, I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I'll have to go online and do some research.
You had this system that kind of happened, and it was rich guys who decided to bet on their horses. The left decided to buy the racetrack.
Rob Witwer co-wrote the book The Blueprint, exposing the trail blazed by the Gang of 4 to infiltrate Colorado politics.
The word that you come across again and again when studying the progressive or democratic strategy is infrastructure. Infrastructure is the blocking and tackling of political campaigns.
And so they brought together a team. What they did is they pulled together all these groups of the left that previously didn't work well together.
Enter Colorado's largest and most powerful teachers union, the Colorado Education Association. Steps from the Capitol, it became the Gang of 4's war room.
Inside these walls in 2004, they assembled some of the nation's most liberal groups and drew the plans not for a battle, but a never-ending offensive.
The radical environmentalists that have a seat at the table. There is the labor unions, the SEIU, and other labor unions, the CEA, the Colorado Teachers Union.
Working with the trial lawyers, working with the bond dealers, and working with this new group of homosexual activists who all realized all of their agenda moves forward if Democrats take over.
So what they decided to do was to put together a strategy, a political strategy that had never been used before anywhere, by creating up to 30 different groups.
Groups to push ethics complaints and legal harassment, groups to do MoveOn.org type activism.
These were not new ideas, but they just hadn't been planted at the state level. And Colorado was the place when it was first done, and boy did it work.
The Democrats, with good legal advice, they were able to create committees that supposedly did not coordinate with the candidates, but actually did.
Was there hanky-panky going on? Was there something that skirted the law? Yeah, we have suspicions that's the case. Overwhelmingly, they changed the rules, they changed the laws, and therefore they were able to exploit those changes.
Very much like a political venture capital fund. They said, these are the returns that we want on our investment. The returns that we want on our investment are to win the state House of Representatives, to win the state Senate, to win the governor's race.
In 2002, Democrats convinced voters to pass Amendment 27, opening the floodgates to the millions the Gang of 4 wanted to spend. This would take spending levels in Colorado campaigns to new heights.
And I remember the commercials vividly. And they said, take the nastiness out of politics. Vote for Amendment 27. Well, who doesn't want to take the nastiness out of politics? So it passed, and I haven't seen it more nasty.
Under the deceitful guise of campaign finance reform, Amendment 27 passed, and Democrats were quick to take advantage of new ways to fill their coffers. Then, the Democrats enlisted a liberal court to help stack the deck.
This Supreme Court justices putting their people on the redistricting panel that drew the lines in a way that the Republicans couldn't recover.
Republican incumbents walked into a trap.
Everybody says that negative advertising doesn't work. They're nuts. It most certainly does.
And I remember being home in the kitchen with my then newborn and toddler and hearing off to the side on the TV commercials against me, which was unheard of in a House race at the time. It was amazing.
Pam Rhodes, running for a state House seat and mother of two, vividly remembers the viciousness of the attacks against her in 2004.
It was on a kids channel, and I heard something about, Pam Rhodes wants your children to smoke, and all I could think is people can't believe that's true, right? I mean, that's so crazy.
They were outright lies. So all of a sudden, these hand grenades came in from all over the place, and it didn't matter if they were truths, didn't matter if they were a lie, it didn't matter.
So they had millions and millions of dollars that they were putting into this, and Republicans didn't have anything to match it, and still don't.
At the time, Democrats were last in registered voters, behind both independents and Republicans. But despite all this, the Gang of Four swept their Democrat candidates into power.
The State House switched from Republican to Democratic for the first time in about 40 years.
But the Gang of Four and their new organization, the Colorado Democracy Alliance, or CODA, were just getting started.
Instead of resting on their 2004 victories, they built a political machine to dominate the next decade.
Colorado Democracy Alliance. It is a very well-funded business. You see them hiring people that are full-time operatives.
The result was a campaign that never quit, an assault that was doing far more than winning elections.
The bigger picture is not just to win an election. It is not. It is to change the culture, to change America. Fits right in with Obama's plan of fundamental transformation.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
CODA's message was clear. If you had an R next to your name, you had a target on your back. Libby Szabo was defeated in her state Senate run in 2008.
There were groups coming in saying things that I don't know where they came up with. That is not what I thought. That is not who I am. I had been involved in that community for over 20 years.
And Republicans like Matt Needler, who they defeated in 2006.
My favorite one was a television ad on cable stations when I ran for the state Senate that said I was weak on immigration.
When it comes to immigration, Matt Kneedler is a wet canoodle.
Well, I had been Congressman Tancredo's legislative director. Congressman Tancredo was Mr. Anti-illegal immigration. My record was very clear, and the Democrats felt that the best way to strike me down was to change what voters believed about me, to say that I was too soft on immigration. So they ran ads saying I was soft on immigration. It was whatever it took to win.
All of a sudden I started seeing TV commercials for a state house race, and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? Who is this person? Where'd they get the kind of money?
The Gang of Four and CODA operated invisible to the outside world. No one knows how much was spent or whether CODA's shadow organizations even existed from one day to the next.
There was an analysis done by the Denver Post looking at the 2010 race, and it was hopelessly complex.
Money was no object to Gang of Four member Tim Gill, as long as he could push his social agenda.
We have successfully flipped legislatures around this country from Republican control to Democratic control, and the net result is always good for gay people, always.
As a candidate, I was just a 29-year-old guy with a cute dog and a beautiful wife, and I was running for office, and I wanted to improve our roads in our district, and that was it. It turns out that group had a budget of at least a couple $100,000 to just alone to target me.
It was dirty, but ineffective. it worked.
Some of that dirt was exposed when internal election documents were leaked straight from CODA offices.
And it turned out it was an intern that the leftist think tank had working for them. And I spoke with him. He said, I keep seeing all these people coming into our offices. The Democratic leadership from the legislature, these rich guys that are coming in, the trial lawyers are coming in, they keep coming in and meeting. And afterwards I have to clean up the room, and I'm seeing these documents, and I was scared to death.
One document exposes apparent arrogance and even contempt CODA had toward voters. Plans for an Educate the Idiots campaign. The memo states the AFL-CIO would be tasked to educate the idiots, and clearly labels one so-called idiot group minorities.
The Educate the Idiots campaign. Really insulting stuff.
Just below educating the idiots, plans to abuse the court system with legal maneuvering to wage distraction lawsuits against Republican candidates and organizations before the election. Ironically, the left's hypocritical champions of transparency dubbed it the leave no trace strategy. The Democrat majority wasted no time in expanding the role of government in virtually every aspect of life. It was open season on economic liberty and personal liberty, even declaring certain faucets, toilets, and shower heads illegal.
Again, everything that goes on in my house, they want to regulate what sort of toilets are in my bathrooms and what kind of light bulbs are in my lamps. Raise women's taxes more. They want to tell me what doctor I can go to, what health plan I can have. That is the war on women, somebody controlling everything we do.
Whatever CODA wants is what happens.
State Senator Greg Brophy has seen regulations creep into nearly every aspect of Colorado life.
You know, telling kids what they can and can't eat at school, all of the renewable energy mandates, significantly empowering the trial lawyers.
The Democrat takeover predictably spread into green energy mandates, leading to higher prices for Coloradans.
The legislature recently has passed bills that have raised utility rates in rural areas, and that was done just to really satisfy the environmentalists in this coalition.
It's nothing new. Coloradans are rejecting these policies, but to the Gang of Four's political operation, the politicians who support them are expendable and instantly replaceable. Such was the case with Colorado Democrat Governor Bill Ritter.
So they put in place renewable energy mandates. They put in place restrictions on oil and gas industry. Nothing went through the legislature, nothing got through the governor's office that didn't have the stamp of approval from the radical environmental movement. It was so extreme that he couldn't run again.
For all of Ritter's unpopular, damaging, and costly policies, he was richly rewarded.
Ritter went on to earn a $300,000 a year salary paid for by Pat Stryker up at CSU.
Ritter was installed at the Center for the New Energy Economy, working with politicians and bureaucrats to create job-killing environmental policies.
They are changing Colorado, certainly in my opinion, for the worse.
I really don't see what the point of raising utility rates to the point where companies don't want to move into Colorado and we can't create jobs in Colorado.
Governor Hickenlooper signed a bill he himself admitted was flawed. Now utilities are forced by the government to use renewable energy to power 20% of their output. To pay for it, they were allowed to raise rates on those who could least afford it.
The 2013 legislative session was the most partisan, most brutal, most activist, and most elitist I have ever seen.
There was estimates that the cost of energy because of 252 on rural Colorado will be a 50% increase. Mom and pop farmers can't continue to farm if their energy costs are going to be going up by 50%.
It's definitely an attack on liberty. We went from having the cheapest energy rates in the Rocky Mountain West to having the second highest, only behind California.
Now we have one of the highest renewable energy mandates in the country. This is amazing that it happened here.
Colorado was beginning to experience on the state level the same corrupt patterns of government cronyism occurring in the Obama administration with Solyndra and others. Billionaire Pat Stryker backed a company which received $400 million of taxpayer money.
Pat Stryker was definitely a founder of CODA, and Pat Stryker also was the bankroller for Abound Energy, a company that was funded from Barack Obama's stimulus money, and now it sits abandoned in Fort Collins.
Well, I would refer you to the Department of Energy for specifics about any particular loan. Inherent within these kinds of investments that there is risk.
The government has decided that it's going to pick winners and losers in the energy area.
But it's really about funneling power and jobs to those people that support CODA or support those organizations.
4,100 gallons of toxic waste was left sitting in the Stryker-backed green energy company.
And even though many of these people are billionaires or multi-billionaires on their own, if they can utilize our money to basically accomplish their social agenda, that's a great thing for them.
Every facet of the state's $30 billion a year oil and gas industry is under assault by CODA and the Gang of Four. So much so that Governor Hickenlooper hedged on his fracking opposition when the issue threatened him and Senator Mark Udall's re-election. It follows the CODA trend to mask true intentions during an election year.
The environmentalists have also pushed to limit fracking in Colorado and really make it more difficult for the oil and gas companies to develop energy, fossil fuel energy in Colorado.
Private property rights in particular are something that are very important, of course, to people in the western United States. And CODA and its aligned groups on the left have definitely been attacking private property rights on a lot of areas.
The infrastructure of the Gang of Four attracted scores of environmental radicals. Now these self-described fractivists, like fractivist.org founder Shane Davis, organize to push their agenda onto pro-growth towns and county governments. These zealots have gone so far as to compare their fight to the civil rights struggle.
This has gone from just being a tree hugger protecting the environment to a civil rights movement.
Basically, they're trying to stop those people utilizing what is rightfully theirs.
So this civil rights movement now, as you're seeing in Fort Collins, Loveland, Lafayette, Broomfield, all along the Front Range are standing up, fighting for their civil rights.
But in fact, the radical agenda of the left was dividing the state to historic levels.
Tonight, the fight to form a 51st state. Some in northern Colorado want to secede from the state of Colorado.
Voters in 5 counties ended up voting in support of secession efforts to form a 51st state.
The Colorado state flag is still flying high here in Fort Lupton, at least for now.
It underscored a deep and growing divide between liberal elites and grassroots Coloradans. The radical agenda the Gang of Four had thrust on the state had finally reached a tipping point.
Jared Polis wants to outlaw fracturing, which will run every major oil and gas company out of the state of Colorado.
Jared Polis even released a video expressing his outrage that a private property owner had dared to frack near one of his guest houses.
So this is our guest house. My partner Marlon always has a big Halloween gathering here every year, which is a lot of fun. You know, this part of our Colorado dream is over.
While the Halloween party might be canceled, the Democrats Polis helped to put in the State House found another way to help manipulate elections.
It was nicknamed by most of the folks on my side of the aisle as same-day voter fraud.
Chris Holbert watched the Democrats pass one of the most alarming voter laws in America.
So I can go live here in this community, but I could go to a different House or Senate district around the state and tell the county clerk I intend to live in the district, and they would be required to give me a live ballot, not a provisional ballot.
When they passed this new voter law, it was to make it so elections were much more malleable, much more easy to manipulate.
All you have to say is, I intend to live here. That's all. I intend to live here, and they'll let you vote. But that's what you can do once you take over the state government.
Voter laws like this open the door to widespread fraud, and the sponsors don't seem to mind one bit.
The Democrats, the people who are behind the bill, are not required to come and answer our questions. So if I ask you, what do you mean by intend to live in the district? They can just sit there and stare at us. They don't have to come and respond.
So basically, if you're willing to take a 3-week vacation in Colorado, you're legal to vote anywhere you want. You just have to say, I intend to live there.
Flouting the law is nothing new in the Mile High City, where Governor Hickenlooper served as mayor. Though Colorado's marijuana laws prohibit open consumption, young Denverites and new transplants openly violate the rules.
You can do pretty much whatever you want here. You can sit here, smoke weed, you can enjoy the sun, enjoy the rain. You can play Magic, the card game down at the bottom of the hill at the Magic Circle. You just come here to have a good time. I mean, hell, come here on a holiday, it's beautiful. Christmas, 4th of July, all of it. I mean, there's always people up here.
Well, Colorado allows you to smoke marijuana. It's the first state to legalize it for not only medical use, but recreational use. And I love myself, and I love everybody. And I want the best for everybody and myself. And Colorado allows that by allowing diversity.
I recently did a post on my front door and on social media that I was not going to allow people entering my business that smell or reek of marijuana. I did have people vandalize my business, you know, rip stuff off my building, spit on my building, you know. I had threats.
Well, it started out, like, I got out here and, like, at first, like, heroin was a big drug. And then people, like, started, you know, dealing more weed and everything because dispensaries started opening up. And then legalization came around, and then weed was finally, like, instead of having big-time weed dealers, now all of a sudden, like, you start getting meth to pop up, and meth pops up everywhere.
Gang of Four member Jared Polis welcomes the young and aimless to Colorado with open arms, where they're gathering in pot enclaves like this park in Denver, known as Stoner Hill.
It's going great. Come out and visit, please. We want your tourism money. Come show solidarity, even if you don't buy or smoke marijuana.
Homeless people are leaving for the Rocky Mountains, and you might be able to guess why.
I'm not from here. I'm not a native of Colorado at all. I come from Louisiana. So it's like, for me to come out here and to see the atmosphere knowing that weed is legal, guys like us, we come up here to Stoner Hill to smoke. We come up here to chill, mingle, whatever.
Whatever your views on marijuana legalization, and for the record, I support medical marijuana, the broader political and social engineering motives of radical Jared Polis and his Gang of Four colleagues are certainly cause for concern. Polis supports federal legislation to turn every state into Colorado. He wants to impose Stoner Hill on the rest of the country, a sanctuary for Democrat voting dependents, whether you want it or not. And Polis has the Obama administration and its selective enforcers at the Justice Department on his side to push the boundaries to the extreme.
You want to head
Denver has become a sanctuary for chaos in more ways than one.
Mr. Hickenlooper, the biggest criticism of you so far has probably been that you allegedly preside over a sanctuary city.
We can't deport. We don't have the power, the statutory power to do deportations.
Instead of touring the chaos of America's crumbling borders in the summer of 2014, President Obama and Governor Hickenlooper decided to play pool at a bar. The optics spoke volumes.
Believe me, immigration policy for America is now totally political. The Democrat Party that looks at those people coming across and say, you know, those are all undocumented Democrats.
In Congress, Jared Polis is pressuring the president to end deportations.
We will bring full pressure to bear on the president to use the authority that he already has to expand deferred action to halt deportations.
Latinos have not only been increasing in their potential to vote, but they have been voting increasingly Democratic over the last 10 years in Colorado.
If those folks coming across that border all ended up voting conservative Republican, there'd be a 50-foot high wall with broken glass on the top.
I was born to Filipino immigrants in Philadelphia. My parents came here legally. It wasn't easy. They learned English, they learned our history, they followed our rules. They came here for the American dream and cherished our constitutional republic. That's the same experience that millions of law-abiding immigrants and their families share across America. But progressives like Jared Polis say none of that matters. It's the sheer numbers of future Democrat voters that counts. It's about cheap labor and political gain.
Enterprise cities. So it's kind of looking at, and immigration would be an example, would be a look at freeing up a city like Detroit. To say Detroit, under direct charter from the federal government, it's like a charter city, and they've looked at doing this in Guatemala or Honduras, as a charter city would be able to effectively have their own immigration policy.
You can be arrogant when you recognize that, you've got this powerful force behind you.
That sentiment rings true for Governor Hickenlooper when he referred to some of his own constituents as backwards for having beliefs that differ from his own.
We have some of the same, backwards thinking in the kind of rural western areas.
Cake shop owner in Colorado now facing fines or even jail time after he refused to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding due to his religious beliefs. So does becoming a business owner mean you have to check your convictions at the door?
As the state considered fining Christian business owners for their religious beliefs, Governor Hickenlooper appeared to issue a threat to Colorado voters, suddenly granting a reprieve to a convicted mass murderer who killed 4 people in a family pizza parlor.
Governor John Hickenlooper appears to drop hints that he would give the Chuck E. Cheese killer, Nathan Dunlap, full clemency after Election Day if Hickenlooper loses, criticized by some as poor leadership.
Even though 2/3 of Coloradans support the death penalty, it didn't matter. CODA and the Colorado Democrats had enjoyed alarming success and encountered few roadblocks. But all that came crashing down when they began messing with the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, brazenly forcing liberal East Coast values on freedom-loving Rocky Mountain citizens.
In 2013, we had 2 gun control bills pushed by billionaire Michael Bloomberg from New York City come to Colorado.
They wanted to take Michael Bloomberg's gun laws and put them here in Colorado.
We do know that when the session started after the Newtown, Connecticut shooting, that he did get phone calls from Mayor Bloomberg, and he's lied about those.
Well, let's stick to the facts. I never talked to Mayor Bloomberg. Again, that's been out in the press and all this stuff. Okay. Just for the record, I met Mayor Bloomberg when I was a mayor, and I know him. I think he's a pretty good mayor.
You'll catch your child reaching into the cookie jar. They'll say, "No, I'm not stealing any cookies." That's what Governor Hickenlooper did. His hand was literally covered in crumbs everywhere, and he had chocolate all over his lips. And what? Mayor Bloomberg? No, he didn't talk. I don't know, who is he?
Governor Hickenlooper even blamed his signing of the gun law bill on one of his staff.
One of my staff made a commitment that we would sign it if it got passed.
But the Colorado Secretary of State's own website reveals that Bloomberg's group, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, registered several lobbyists, including the Gang of Four's own strategist, Ted Trimpa, who has been nicknamed Colorado's answer to Karl Rove.
But Ted Trimpa, who is the field general for the Gang of Four, the Colorado Democracy Alliance, was in the building to usher through the 2 Bloomberg gun control bills. And those were the 2 controversial bills that passed.
We have more guns than people in this country, but I need more guns to protect myself. That strategy doesn't work.
Mayor Bloomberg, how you doing? Why can you defend yourself but not the majority of Americans? I mean, look at the team of security you got, and you're an advocate for gun control?
Their weaknesses include arrogance. The 2013 legislative session was arrogant. There's no other word for it.
While Democrat legislators did the bidding of New York's gun control crusading mayor and took calls directly from Vice President Joe Biden, they refused to respond to Colorado's own citizens, and they badmouthed Second Amendment activists in the halls of the state legislature. Take, for example, the Democrat president of the state Senate during the gun control debate, saying that there was a sickness that needed cleansing.
Cleansing a sickness from our souls doesn't come easily. It's gruesome.
Their minds were turned off. They weren't interested in logic. They were interested in paying back Michael Bloomberg and giving him and Tim Gill and Pat Stryker and the leftists who got them in office.
One Democrat senator callously dismissed a rape victim who came to the State House to to testify against gun control measures that disempower women.
What would have been different if I had been carrying the weapon I was licensed to carry that night?
She was raped on a campus, on a college campus. And she said if I would have been able to have something to protect me, I think I wouldn't have been raped. And the committee chairman told her, no, you probably would have still been raped.
I just want to say that actually statistics are not on your side, even if you had had a gun.
All 62 elected sheriffs, all elected sheriffs came out against them, but they weren't heard. They weren't listened to. The governor wouldn't return the phone call. They weren't even allowed to testify in any great way when the bills were shoved through all on the same day. It was arrogance.
Colorado's sheriffs desperately tried to meet with Governor Hickenlooper to voice their strong opposition to his gun bill.
I didn't find out that the sheriffs were trying to talk to me until a week afterwards.
When they asked why he did not meet with them and signed the bill anyway, Hickenlooper tried turning it into a joke.
How many apologies do you want? I apologize.
Another representative said in a floor debate that women should be able to protect themselves with a whistle and a pen, so we can blow our whistle.
That's why we have call boxes. That's why we have safe zones. That's why we have the whistles.
Pretty sure nobody's going to pay attention to a whistle.
There's a rather well-known scene now of Senate President Morris on the Rachel Maddow show, admitting that he had told his caucus, the Senate Democrats, to effectively ignore the constituent concerns and move forward on that slate of gun control legislation.
We get the point that some of these folks think their Second Amendment rights are being abridged, and even though we know darn good and well that's not true, it's not worth getting into that argument with them, and so just move along and don't read any more of these than you absolutely have to.
The operatives for the Democrat Party in this state used every issue they could but guns to try and gain power. They knew that if they ran it straight up the middle and said, we want the majority so we can enact gun controls, they'd lose. But the very first thing they did when they got the majority in both the State House, State Senate, and the governorship is ran gun control down Coloradans' throats.
Whether the legislation was good or bad in the eyes of constituents, at the moment where they demonstrated that arrogance of don't listen to your constituents, I think the world turned against them.
The gun control legislation that was passed in Colorado was not reflective of what the constituents in certain of those districts wanted to see.
What they didn't realize is we have the recall in Colorado.
Finally, living under the machine the Gang of Four created had reached a tipping point. Coloradans reclaimed control from the shadowy elites and launched a grassroots effort to take their state back.
The pro-recall forces were outspent 11-1, and we won and recalled 2 state senators.
The public rose up and said absolutely not and recalled the president of the Senate, the Democrat leader of the Senate. And the Gang of Four said, thank you very much for your service. Thank you for getting accomplished this agenda item for us, but you're expendable and we don't need you anymore.
Thanks to the 2010 Supreme Court decision in Citizens United versus FEC, Coloradans could finally fight back. Citizens United restored First Amendment protections to political speech, ensuring the rights of citizens and grassroots activists to join together and speak with one voice. The playing field is finally level. Activism and money from the grassroots, along with the will of the people, won. The Gang of Four and the governor's good friends Bloomberg and Biden were shown the door.
No response tonight from former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg about his controversial remarks about Colorado.
Here's what he said, quote, the NRA went after 2 or 3 state senators in a part of Colorado where I don't think there's roads. It's as far rural as you can get.
Well, the mayor may not realize the recalls happened in Colorado Springs and in Pueblo. The Springs is the 2nd largest city in the state, while Pueblo is the 7th.
And we have plenty of paved roads.
What it's going to take is for us to worry about principle and not personality. to be less enamored with a politician and more enamored with liberty and how we get there.
Given the success of the uprising against gun control under Citizens United Freedoms, it is not surprising Senator Udall proposes to reverse free speech across the country. His amendment would allow the government to regulate speech, creating a system just as broken as the so-called Colorado reforms.
The most radical proposal that has been considered by the United States Senate in the time I have served. If this proposal were to pass, its effects would be breathtaking.
What happened in Colorado is now taking shape in other states. Many operatives are being sent to places like Texas and Virginia to turn red states blue and take the Colorado model across state lines.
I mean, think of this. Colorado, the West, has become a poster child for gun control. How does that happen? Here is the West, where people came out to make their fortunes mining and drilling and growing crops and raising animals. And now our property rights are being diminished. The message is, if it happened here, it can happen in every state in the country. And that's what we need to be careful of. This Colorado model is being exported.
There's reason to believe, until it fails, that it's going to continue to succeed.
If they can do it in Texas, Colorado's one thing, but if they can do it in Texas, Republicans are doomed.
Battleground Texas, a group that is formed to turn Texas blue.
Battleground Texas organizers have already been exposed utilizing potential illegal tactics and confidential information to boost Democrat turnout.
It shows an organizer with the Democratic Political Action Committee, Battleground Texas, allegedly breaking the law.
If they do to Texas what they did to Colorado over a course of years, game over. Because you could take all the presidential swing states, put them together, and they don't match what Texas does in a national election. Texas is going to be the prize.
And Texas is not alone. The infiltration of the once reliable red state of Virginia is all but complete. Groups such as Progress VA started in Colorado. Now these groups are thrusting an ultra-liberal agenda to transform Virginia. They're the ones that helped elect Clinton confidant and native New Yorker Terry McAuliffe as governor, setting the stage to deliver the state to Hillary in 2016.
What happens when CODA comes to your state is a liberal agenda is implemented. Taxes go up, fees go up, you lose your individual liberty. They did it in Colorado, and they can do it in almost any state.
The shady architects of the Rocky Mountain heist caught Colorado citizens off guard through secrecy, deception, and coordination. But the good news is, here in my state, we're doing everything we can to fight back and return power to the people. We know what we're up against, and now you do too.
Are you filming?
Oh yeah. Yep.
All right.
We're rolling.
I come to Colorado to smoke weed. Pot is legal, and it's awesome.
I walked across America earlier this year to get to Colorado. This is actually my favorite state, besides like Connecticut.
Land of the free, and you know what? We are the freest.
We have to pass on our knowledge to our kids. Did you know the Declaration of Independence was signed on hemp paper?
Knowledge is key, but time is key also.
So what do you guys think of the idea of a party that lasts forever?
I don't have any worries. I'm going to get fed, I'm going to get clothes.
But you know, you're welcome. It makes you feel good to give me something. So when you feel good, you're happy. And happiness brings love. Even if this city wasn't here, we would still come by the water and to the mountain to sing, you know? And to praise the... A simple feather. Just so other people realize that you're the one talking.
Currently going around asking questions, asking people like what their ideal party is, and I'm going to mesh that into one giant experience.
And because I'm perfect, I want to know why I'm perfect, and that allows me to become more than perfect.